Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our latest instalment about the parable of the prodigal son. And if you've been following through, you'll know we've got to the point where the younger son is accepted back into the house and there's a great party. And now the tone changes again, and we start to look at the older son, who has really only been mentioned at the very beginning of the story, and now he comes back into it. We have to remember this story was told to both the so-called sinners and tax collectors, and also the Pharisees, the religious leaders, and to the teachers of the law. It's a bit dangerous to say that one group is the younger son and one group is the older son, because in fact all of us can be both. But nonetheless, this is a parable for them to understand. And you might remember at the beginning of the story, it was the older son who, without saying anything, agreed to take his share of the property, and like the younger son, effectively wanted to inherit before his father died. In short, insulting him grievously. And then we find that there's a celebration. The older son is outside and he hears a celebration. We need to understand a celebration back then was not a nice, quiet cheese and wine party in the lounge. It would have been raucous and loud. It would have been full of music. There would have been wine and food, particularly as we hear the fattened calf. And the point about that is that you don't kill a fattened calf just for a few people. That would have been enough to feed the whole village. So basically everyone is invited. Everyone starts to hear the musicians playing, hears of the invite, hears of the rumour of the young son being accepted back, and they're up for a party. And as they come in from the fields after a day's work, they hear of this and they start to come in. And so it is true with the older son. He hears a celebration, and what does he do? Well, he should come in as the older son to greet the guests on behalf of the father. Instead, there is suspicion in his heart. He calls to one of the servants, and quite possibly the translation should say one of the young boys, who would have been outside the celebration. Children in those days wouldn't have been part of it. They'd have been kicking around in the dust outside the house. And he asks him what's going on. And he finds that the younger son has returned, and that's why there's a party. And he is refusing to go in. And as such, this is another insult to the father who's called the party. Again, we today might not quite get this, but let me tell you a true story from the country of Yemen. I visited Yemen many years ago, and to the eastern side of Yemen there is a place called Marib, and Marib was famous for the dam that collected the water coming off of the mountains, and therefore was an agricultural kingdom. The dam is ruined now, but it's still there, you can see it. And the story is that the king of Marib learnt that the dam was about to break. And so he got into a conspiracy with his son, and the son was to deliberately insult him. And because this was such a grievous blow to the father, he said to all the guests and all the villagers, "I want to sell my property and leave. I can't stand the shame." And with this excuse, he sold up to them. And it's only then that the king said, "Oh, and by the way, the dam is about to break. We all need to leave," having pocketed the money. That gives an indication of just how bad it was to be insulted by your older son. It was enough to sell up and leave in that story. And so too now, this insult is deep and wounding, another insult. How will the Father react in the story of Jesus' parable, in this parable? What will he do? And it comes back to us as well. We as long-standing Christians, if we are, what are our hearts like? Are we suspicious? Or are we happy to join the party with the Father? I trust and pray it's so, that we'll learn a little more that might cause us to reflect more seriously as we get to know the older son even better. But that's for a couple of talks forward. Let's pray. Father, give us hearts that love you and want to be with you. Amen.